Hey there, welcome. It's the regular guy again. Still Saturday night, actually Sunday morning, very early Sunday morning, recording my second show. This is going to be more like a regular guy Vikings half an hour because I got rid of one segment, and it's where I kind of like talked about offensive and defensive rankings preseason and kind of like how teams are playing compared to that. And I kind of got maybe a little bit, I don't know, stale or whatever with that one. So I'm kind of like, I don't know, just thinking it through. I don't know, spitballing or whatever the term may be. Trying to think of something new to put there. And actually, I think I might have come up with something, and that is to look at what teams might be sellers at the trade deadline, because I think the trade deadline's coming up in just a few weeks. So I think after 4 games, the picture will be clear of who is going to be selling, who's going to be buying. I think will be buyers, and so I think maybe I'll take that opportunity. I'll do some research during the week and try and find which teams I think are selling, what players might be available to us, and might actually help our team for like a playoff push. So look for that next week when I do this particular show. It's kind of like my picks and power rankings, and I'll throw that in. It'll be kind of like a fun little extra segment. So anyway, I don't know how much I'll be able to ramble. I'm like super freaking tired. It's 5 a.m. here on the West Coast. Just, man, I just run into all these just different things. I changed out my USB port. I had to unplug my camera and microphone again, and then I had to go back and do all the settings. So this time I was smart about it. I like took screenshots of all the settings so that way I know what I'm doing next time. But man, so much frustration with this sometimes. But I'm ready to dive into this show. Like I said, it'll be more like a regular guy Vikings half hour, maybe 40 minutes. But at least I get it in. I let you know where I think the teams stand heading into week 4, and I get my picks in so we can continue having fun with that. But so anyway, so let's get it started. I'm going to bring up the spreadsheet, and we can talk about these power rankings, which I'm sure for those of you who are actually watching the show probably will have some disagreements with. And like I've explained before, what I do with my power rankings is I actually use them as a basis for when I make my weekly picks. It's a part of my equation. And so I don't like raising teams too high or tanking them too low on any given week, because I think everything kind of evens out more or less by the end of the year. And I just think having teams flying up and down the board week after week is just kind of nonsense. Obviously, I know based on the way teams are playing right now, like if you watch segments of national media shows, right, like I don't watch Stephen A, but I know it shows up on my YouTube sometimes. Stephen A does like a top 5 or whatever. I know Colin Cowherd does like a top 10 hierarchy, and plenty of other shows have their own rankings and things. And so I'm not a prisoner of the moment. Okay, if a team continues to win, I'll slowly move them up. If they continue to lose, I'll slowly move them down. Sometimes, even if a team wins or loses, if I feel like they fought well or played decently, depending on how strong I thought the other team was, I won't feel the need to move them up or down. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's actually get into the power rankings. I made them a little bit bigger. I hope that's easier to see. I also changed the font to, it's either Rackus or Raucus. I'm not sure how that's pronounced, but that's kind of like a Viking-ish kind of a font that I've been using throughout all my stuff. So there you go. So there's some new stuff. So let's obviously my power ranking season start never changes. Power rankings into week 4 is where we're at now, and then I indicate where they've moved from the previous week. So still holding strong at 1 and 2 and hasn't changed all year long is Kansas City and Baltimore. I think highly of those teams. I think they'll be playing in the AFC Championship. After flip-flopping Detroit and San Francisco last week, I have actually flip-flopped them back. I've got Detroit back up to 3, San Francisco back down to 4. I know that San Francisco's lost 2 games in a row. I know that that was kind of a weird loss to the Rams, but I just don't see any other teams I'm willing to put ahead of them right now, at least not yet. They're dealing with some injuries. Brock Purdy has been playing pretty well, actually, despite the 2 losses. But so for now, I still think pretty highly. The McCaffrey thing is a little scary with him going to get another opinion from Germany. And then they lost Hargrave for the year. So, yeah, so they could start to drop. But for now, they're 4. Detroit got up to 3. They, I should probably get in the habit. Hang on, let me pull my main cam back over. This will give me a chance to pull up my browser, and I can actually pull up last week's scores and schedule and stuff. Sorry for the delay. Let's go to scores real quick from week 3, just because it's like, you know what, at 5 in the morning, dude, my memory is not, plus we're nearly a week removed from last week's games. Okay, so yeah, let me bring my spreadsheet back over. Detroit beat the Cardinals 2013. It was a tight game, but the Cardinals have been playing a little over their heads this year, so good win for Detroit. And it looks like the game was in Arizona, so yeah, decent little win. Okay, so moving on. So 5 is Philadelphia. I've had them kind of holding steady at 5 all year. They have their ups, they have their downs, but ultimately they're still a really talented team. Here's a big mover for me. I have Buffalo moving up to 6. They have moved up from 9 to 6 this week, and actually they are overall up from 11 all the way up to 6 for the season. So with the way Josh Allen is playing and the way that whole team is coming together, they look strong. I have New Orleans moving up yet another spot, and let's just go kind of check and see what they did, because again, I don't remember. I think that was, did they play Philadelphia? Yeah, that was that tight loss to the Eagles. So I can't really fault them for that. In fact, I kind of thought highly. I thought they were kind of ready for a down week, and they did have one technically, but it wasn't as down as you would think. They really held their own against a really good Philadelphia team. So I actually had New Orleans moving up 1 from 8 to 7. They're one of my biggest movers so far in the year. I think actually the Vikings are my biggest mover, maybe the Steelers, but starting the year, New Orleans I had at 14. They're now up to 7, so they're up 7 slots. And in addition to the fact that you're like, well, why would New Orleans move up after a loss? And I think it has a lot to do with some of the other teams that are in that range right there, which is like kind of like 8 through 12. Some of those teams really aren't playing very well, and so it's making it hard for me to really say, well, New Orleans is worse than any of those teams. All right, so we have Dallas at 8. They've dropped 2 from last week. They're actually down 1 overall from the season start. They obviously just won on Thursday night, which we will take into account going into next week. But for now, we're only talking about week 3 games. They actually got it kind of taken to them against the Ravens. They made a nice little kind of comeback there at the end, little Cousins-esque closing of the gap, right, to make the score look a little better at the end. But ultimately, they really weren't on the, they didn't look like they belonged on the same field with Baltimore. So Baltimore kind of continues to prove to me they belong to be my 2. Dallas is down 2 slots from last week. This will probably baffle people. The Bengals at 9, even after having started the year 0-3, a tight loss to the Chiefs on a last-second field goal. What happened to them? Then that game against the Commanders, Jaden Daniels played out of his mind, and so you can say, oh, well, that was because the Bengals defense is terrible. And I just think maybe that was just a game where McLaurin and Daniels just kind of went off, and so sometimes you have things like that happen to you and they hit at the exact wrong moment. And so Cincinnati has a season defining game coming up this week, because if they start the season 0-4, I think only one team that's ever started 0-4 to start the year has ever made the playoffs. And if I just take a quick look, they got lucky. They're at Carolina. So I mean, Dalton looked really good last week, but you never know, the Red Rifle, right? He might get some revenge on his old team, but I think the Bengals will finally get off the schneid and get their first win. So yes, I don't think they're the ninth best team in football right now, especially considering their record. But I can only move them down so far, just kind of based on what I'm looking at. So that actually moves them down 3 overall. I had them 6. I thought really highly of them starting the year, and then down 2 from last week. Okay, so I have the Rams kind of holding tight right there at 10. I didn't drop them too far after all that stuff happened where they got beat up pretty good by Arizona. They lost Cup in that game. Nakua was out since week 1. Everybody was kind of jumping off the Rams, right? And I thought, no, I'm going to hold them tight. And sure enough, they came back and got that nice win against San Francisco. So they're at 10. They didn't move, but they're down 2 on the year, and rightfully so. Green Bay have got holding steady at 11. They are actually up 1 spot from their season beginning. A nice win against Tennessee, but it's Tennessee. So, I'm going to need a little more from you guys. And obviously, you're playing the Vikings this week, so we'll see what you're all about, what you're made of. Miami, I have holding steady at 12. They're down 2 spots for me overall from season start. They're obviously going through it. When you start a guy like Skylar Thompson against the Seahawks, you're in for some trouble. They looked horrible. They brought in Tyler Huntley. I think the offense will improve. Who are the Dolphins playing this week? They're playing the Titans. There you go. That's a nice bounce back week for the Dolphins, so they should get a win there. So look for the Dolphins to kind of continue to hang in that top 12 unless something crazy happens. But here's my biggest mover of the week. I've got the Steelers moving up to 13. That's 4 spots from last week where they were at 17, and they're actually up 5 overall spots on the season. Their defense looks really legit. I know that their competition hasn't been the best, but I mean, hey, when you only give up 10 points a game through 3 games, I mean, that defense is legit. So, and Fields doesn't look terrible. He looks at least competent. And so, what can you say? It's Tomlin. Tomlin just does not coach losing teams ever. He's just such a great coach. I mean, we're talking about old stuff, but it's like how we just let him walk and kept Childress, I'll never know. I mean, Tomlin could have been the Vikings coach. Honestly, I'm no longer bitter about it considering the guy we have now, but I was for a while. So anyway, moving on. Tampa holds tight at 14. They're up 3 on the year from 17. Weird loss. Weird loss there. 26-7 to the Broncos. That they actually ruined my parlay. I mean, I ended up losing 2 on the parlay, but they ruined it in the 10 a.m. time slot, which that just bummed me out. So I was a little bit pissed at them. But I wasn't willing to drop them too much. I thought it might have been an anomaly. Maybe Bo Nix just had a great game. Kind of a coming out party for him. So anyway, the Chargers hold tight at 15. They are actually down 2 spots from their season start. Who did the Chargers play last week? They're going to be down here because they're West Coast. Late game. Am I missing them? Did they play early? That's right. They were the team that lost to the Steelers. Herbert got hurt. They had a bunch of injuries in that game, so I wasn't willing to move them down. I still have faith in Harbaugh. Then we've got our Minnesota Vikings all the way up to 16, moving up another 2 spots after a very impressive win against the Houston Texans. They are up 9 spots overall. I think they are my biggest mover of the year so far. They got started out at 25, and the reason why they were so low was because there were no believers in Sam Darnold to start the year. People were questioning Kevin O'Connell because of the way last year went. When he didn't have Kirk, which was unfair, but that's how they felt. They didn't know what to make of the defense. They saw a lot of new faces. They didn't know how it was going to come together. Obviously, we know how it's going, but that explains why they were ranked 25th. A lot of that was some of their metrics from last year didn't look great. Special teams wasn't good. We improved that area vastly in the offseason. And just the national media in Vegas hated us, and so that just ended up slotting them in there at 25th. I mean, I had them having pretty decent roster talent, but roster talent can only kind of raise you up the ranks so far. So now they're proving it. They've moved up 9 spots on the year. They're from 25 all the way up to 16, hopefully moving further. I mean, with Green Bay on the schedule, if we beat Green Bay, we might even get into the top 12. Who knows? So we'll see how it goes. All right, so at 17, my biggest faller of the week is Jacksonville. They moved down 4 slots from last week, and I thought a little more high on Jacksonville starting the year. I had them at 9. They're probably my biggest faller of the year so far. They're down 8 slots. And the team looks lost. Lawrence doesn't look like he's ever going to quite reach his ceiling. Peterson maybe doesn't look like as good a coach as we might have thought he was. I thought maybe they'd be more talented on the offensive side of the ball. They haven't hardly shown anything on offense, so just a disaster of a team. Houston, this is probably a little bit unfair. I started them out at 16 to start the year. I had them holding steady because I didn't really think that they really beat anyone that impressive, and then they got blown out by us, so I had to drop them 2 slots. So they're down 18. They're down 2 overall for the year. They're probably not the 18th best team in the NFL, but that's where I've got them. So Seattle, I've been a little bit unfair with them as well. They're 3-0, and I really only have them moving up 1 spot, starting the year at 20. Now they're at 19, and it's simply because not only have they not been playing the best competition, but also they've been winning kind of tight games. I think this last week they won it a little bit more convincingly, and I think we've already mentioned the game. That was the Dolphin game. It's like it was Skylar Thompson. It's like, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to do more for me. I'm not gonna move you up a ton for that. At 20, we have Chicago. Chicago is actually down 1 for the week, down 5 for the year. I don't love their offense. I don't love their coaching staff. Caleb threw for a lot of yards, but where were the points? There's a difference between, stuffing up a stat sheet and actually putting points on the board and winning games. And so if that's the kind of quarterback he's going to be, I mean, we're 3 games in. At least he did something this week. The first 2 weeks were a disaster. At least he actually started connecting with some of his receivers and putting at least stats. But for me, Chicago, I still think they have a decent defense, but the offense seems like kind of a mess. So they're my 20th best team. Atlanta, I have hanging tight at 21. Down 2 overall on the year. Another close loss. It just seems like that's kind of the Kirk Cousins way. Play tight games, win some, lose some, finish around 500 or so. So maybe they move up a little bit throughout the year, but considering all the talent, it just doesn't seem like it's being utilized. I don't know. Arizona at 22, they're up 2 for the week, and they're up 5 overall on the year. Their offense, on the flip side, actually looks really good, and Kyler Murray looks like he's back. So Arizona could continue to move up this board, especially if San Francisco and LA continue to have injury problems. And maybe Seattle's proven to be somewhat of a fraud. You could see Arizona make a move in the West. You never know. I'm keeping my eye on them. Las Vegas, I think, has been holding steady at 23 all year, and I'm glad I held them steady because it's like 1 week you impress me by beating the Ravens, and then the next week, you lost to the Panthers. So it's like, who are you? So I think holding them steady at 23 is fair. Indianapolis is down 2, down 3 overall for the year. They're at 24. I think maybe we thought Anthony Richardson was going to be a little bit further along. He hasn't looked great. The defense obviously has been demolished at times. They can run the ball, but maybe not as effectively as they need to. I don't know. They don't seem to have the pieces, and maybe they just need more time. But it's like, I mean, yeah, they squeezed out a win against the Bears, but by the time Richardson maybe starts to feel it, Jonathan Taylor might be starting to wear down, and maybe you kind of missed your window there. But I mean, I don't think anyone really thought they were going to be a contender or anything. But anyway, they were just kind of a lower half of the NFL kind of a team. So the Jets at 25, I think people might not agree with that. I've got them up 1 from last week because I just didn't care about beating the Titans. But they're down 3 overall for the year because I don't know. That there's something about that team that just I can't get behind. They're going to have to really... Yeah, they beat the Patriots 24-3. It's Jacoby Brissett. You're at home. You have a really good defense. I mean that Patriots offense looked like like they couldn't do anything. I mean, you knew it was over when it was 14-3. I might have even said that when I did a show last week after that Thursday nighter. It's been a long time since I played. So yeah, so I don't know what to think about the Jets if they get hot, but they got to play us, a week from today in London. So yeah, we'll see. At 26, I have Cleveland down one from last week, down two overall. They don't look good. I'm not a believer in Watson. I don't even remember what they did last week. They lost to the Giants, and I don't think much of the Giants. Yeah, so yeah. Stefanski, what's happening there, man? What is happening? Okay. Denver popped up too for their nice win over Tampa to 27, but they're still down one for the year because Knicks, I'm just not sure. 28, Washington, they popped up too for that great win on Monday night against Cincinnati, up to 28. Now they're up one overall for the year. If Jaden Daniels continues to play like that, they're going to start moving up this board, that's for sure. Tennessee down one at 29. They're down one for the year overall. I'd put them lower if I could. I don't think much of that team, but the bottom three, I think, are just worse. New England's back down three. They had moved up a little bit for me. They had impressed me at some point. I forget against who. A close loss. Oh, that's right. They beat Cincinnati week one, a close loss to Seattle. I thought they're tough, but then they looked like nothing against the Jets, and I was like, okay, yeah, they're the 30th best team in the NFL, or call it 30th worst, 30th best. Anyway. So they are actually up one overall for the year, though. The Giants are at 31. They're holding steady. Carolina at 32, holding steady. The Giants are down one for the year. Carolina's been my 32 all year long. Carolina, okay, yeah, a veteran quarterback in Andy Dalton can help you get a win here and there, but ultimately that team's not going anywhere. They're not going to do anything. You can take my word for that. Okay, so it's time for... Going to bring it back to main cam here, friends. We're going to bring up my show graphic, and then it is time for a scolding.
Scolding.
Oh yeah, gotta love those graphics. Okay, so, and I need to get the next one ready because we got the Fermented Five coming up. Okay, so here is my scolding, and it's this. It's about Ben Solak, and honestly, it could be about a bunch of different guys. He's just the guy that I happen to catch because he's on ESPN. And basically, what my issue is with these guys, these national media guys that are questioning Sam Darnold, is that they aren't willing to have a real opinion. And so that's what my scolding is. So Ben Solak is riding the fence on Sam Darnold. Okay, he's upping his stance. This is what he said in his article or his snippet or whatever. He's upping his stance from full-throated doubter to, interesting choice of words, to suspicious but willing to entertain. I mean, he sounds like a guy scared of commitment or something. So he also goes on to say, because these flashes of quality play are often chased by a few head-scratching weeks. Okay, I'm not arguing that he's wrong about that. So I said, well, Ben, I'm not saying that you couldn't eventually be right with your evaluation, because I myself also don't expect Sam Darnold to play like an MVP for the rest of the season. However, the reason why I take issue with what you say is because it's a typical national opinion piece where the end result, despite some fancy words and phrases, always comes back to, I'm not ready to make a decision yet. I need to see more. And this is what bugs me about guys like this. It's because they've got their finger hovering over the I told you so button, ready to slam it down as soon as Sam Darnold doesn't have a great game or loses a game or makes a mistake, all the while straddling the line, conveniently allowing themselves to criticize the same player week after week, slowly and gradually offering small pieces of backhanded praise, all the while keeping it inside that you know eventually you'll be proven correct, and just due to this neat and tidy little narrative you've constructed for yourself, about Kevin O'Connell, and how it's time for him to make his money. So this is crap. I get tired of people writing stuff like this. It's like, either have a real opinion or don't even freaking write anything in the first place. It's like, yes, we understand. Most everybody is skeptical of Sam Darnold. He hasn't proven it yet. Could this be the process of him proving it? Maybe. Or maybe he just falls back into his old ways. We all know these things already. We don't need some guy to put a bunch of fancy words in a certain order to tell us what things that we already know. So anyway, to kind of finalize the scolding, it's this. Get out of here with weak opinions and bring something real and substantive to the table, because this is a scared take. Do better. Okay? And also, the reason why I don't go after guys like Stephen A. Smith, or guys like him, is because basically they're just blowhards. Who's that one guy, the Cowboys fan with like the freaking sneakers and all the whatnot? Bayless. I hate that guy. Anyway, they're just blowhards. They get paid to say provocative things at the top of their voice. They're meatheads, in my opinion. The people that listen to them intently and give a shit about what they have to say, I think they're meatheads. Sorry if I've insulted anybody. It doesn't do anything for me. I could honestly care less about Stephen A. Smith's opinion. So I went after a guy who actually seems like a pretty smart guy, who is actually trying to, and although I just tore him apart, like, he's trying to like articulate something, right? But at least he's just not on my television screaming in my face. So it's better than that, in my opinion. So anyway, let's get on to the week 4 picks. Okay, so let me get that pulled up here, and then we will pull over the spreadsheet. Okay. So like I mentioned in my little YouTube short, which actually wasn't a YouTube short, it was just a very short video because they have to be less than a minute, so I know that now. We are at 28-20 straight up. You see that over here, if you can read it, I don't know. 28-20 straight up, 27-21 against the spread, and then I am actually 9-6 on my Fermented Five, which I'm keeping track of down here. I don't have the overall record, but I went 5-0 week 1, 1-4 week 2, 3-2 last week. So there's the results from last week. Rough day on the afternoon games, straight up anyway. Okay, so here are, and again, I'm going to try and remind myself to skip the Fermented Five this time. That way I can do my graphic and then do the Fermented Five segment. And actually, it looks like we're going to be on a half an hour. So hey, I was able to ramble. So I came on. I said what my pick was for Cowboys at Giants. The spread was 5.5. In favor of the Cowboys on the road. I actually went ahead and picked Dallas straight up, and I actually picked Dallas to cover the spread. They did not. Aubrey missed that late field goal. They ended up winning by 5, so I ended up taking a red on that one. Here, we'll mark it now. But I did get a green on the straight up, so we'll give myself a green on that one. Nice. Okay, so next up we're skipping. Ooh, here's a nice one. So I'm not necessarily afraid to bet on the Vikings anymore. When I was younger, I was definitely afraid to do it. I mean, I didn't really gamble before anyway, but now if the numbers say so, I will. But this week they didn't say so. And, my apologies if the lines you're looking at are different than mine. I think I put these lines in, who knows, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm not sure. Probably Thursday. So they've changed probably since then. These are the, I'll update them before the games later on today. And I'll be fair, I'll be honest, you know what I mean? But this is what I was looking at the time. So we're just going to go with what I'm looking at now. Sometimes show prep, you miss some stuff here and there. So anyway, you've got Vikings at Packers. As we all know, I did a preview show earlier this evening / morning. The Packers are favored at home by 2.5. And where I came out on my own personal spread was a push. I'm going to go ahead and take the Vikings in a straight-up win, simply because even though I said in my previous show that I think LaFleur is a little bit ahead of KOC at this point, Love is hurt. He is starting. Darnold's on a roll, so I like that coach QB combo for the Vikings to win the game. And then, of course, because my difference, because the Packers were favored by 2.5, but I have the Vikings winning, then they're just outright winning. Yeah, sorry, I always get tripped up on that. So Vikings to win, and that means, of course, because they're giving 2.5 points, then that's who I have against the spread. Okay, then we have Steelers at Colts. The Colts are actually underdogs by 2 at home. My spread came out Steelers by 4, which gives a slight edge to the Steelers for me, so I have the Steelers both winning and covering that small spread. Okay, then skipping down, we have Eagles at Buccaneers. Buccaneers underdogs by 2.5 points at home. My spread came out 6 points to the Eagles, which means I do have the Eagles winning and I do have them covering on the road. Which that's going to be an interesting game because I think the Bucs are going to really want to have a bounce back, and then Philly's kind of feeling a little bit better about themselves after squeaking out a win against New Orleans. So that'll be an interesting one. Eagles on the road. I'll be sure to keep an eye on it. Okay, then you have Bengals at Panthers. Panthers underdogs by 4.5 points at home, as they should be. If it weren't for the fact that the Bengals were 0-3, the spread would be way bigger. My spread came out Bengals by 10.5, so I have the Bengals winning. I have the Bengals covering on the road. Feels like I got a lot of road teams winning this week. Okay, next up, we have Jaguars at Texans, and the spread is Texans by 6.5 points, despite losing by 27 to the Vikings. My spread came out at just Houston by 1, so I do have Houston winning the game, but I have Jacksonville covering that spread. Okay, next up we have Commanders at Cardinals. Cardinals favored by 3.5 at home. My spread came out Arizona by 1, which means I have Arizona winning the game, but I do have the Commanders covering that spread. Okay, skipping there, we have Browns at Raiders. That's a weird one. I would not want to put money. I wouldn't want to come anywhere near putting money on a game like this. Who knows with these teams? My spread came out Raiders by 1. No, excuse me. The Raiders are favored by 1. My spread came out Raiders by 3.5. So I actually have the Raiders winning and covering in that game. We'll see. That's going to be a weird one. I think Vegas is a dome, so there's no rain, but that just feels like the kind of game that should be played in the slop, right? All right, we have the Chiefs at the Chargers. The Chargers are underdogs by 7.5 at home to the Chiefs. I have to imagine this line has moved at least a little bit because I think Herbert is going to play. So my spread came out, interestingly enough, even with the Herbert thing hanging over their head, Chiefs by 5, which means I do have the Chiefs winning. However, I do have the Chargers covering. Okay, next up, this is going to be a great, great game. I think it might be a Sunday nighter. Because are there 2 Monday nighters again? I'll have to look. But we have the Bills at the Ravens. That is what, my 2 and my 6 going at each other? Yeah, my 2 and my 6 going at each other. So good game. Baltimore favored by 2.5 at home. My spread came out Baltimore by 3, so I have Baltimore winning and just barely beating that spread. So I've got the Ravens covering. Okay, and then finally, the final non-fermented 5 game is Titans at Dolphins. Yikes. Will Levis against Tyler Huntley. Dolphins favored by 1 point at home against the Titans. So weird. You wouldn't have thought that 3 weeks ago. My spread came out Dolphins 7, which means I do have the Dolphins winning and covering that meager spread. And if you notice over here, I put a little no, which means even though I like that spread, I will not put money on that game. I do not bet on weird quarterback situations, whether a guy just flat out sucks or it's somebody new. I don't put money on that kind of stuff. It's too risky. So anyway, and it's not like I'm risking a lot of money, but still I'm trying to win, right? Okay, so we actually are going to move on to our Fermented Five. So we're going to bring it back to me, and then we're going to pull up our graphic. We're going to run the graphic.
Fermented Five.
Very nice. Love that. And then we are going to go, let me cover that up, come over here. Let's bring our spreadsheet back, ladies and gentlemen. And now it's time for our Fermented Five. Baby, here are the 5 teams that I bet on, and I am going to show you the bet slip. Okay. First up, come over here. We have Saints at Falcons. The Falcons are favored by a point at home. I think Vegas likes the Falcons a little too much, and I think they took that loss the Saints had, a tight, close loss to the Eagles, a little bit too seriously. My spread came out huge. I think the Saints are going to win it by 2 scores, so my spread was Saints by 14. So I have the Saints taking that point and obliterating it. So Saints to win straight up. Okay, next up, we have Rams at Bears. Bears favored by 3 points at this time at home. My spread came out Rams by 12. I think that the burying of the Rams just happened way too soon. So I have, again, the Rams taking those 3 points and just winning that game straight up. Thank you so much for those points. I appreciate it. That was an easy one. Okay, Broncos at Jets. I don't really think highly of the Jets. We just talked about that in the power rankings, but I think a quarterback like Bo Nix, even with that nice week he had, I think when he goes up, I mean, you saw what the Jets did to Brissett. He goes up against a defense like this, he's going to look like Bo Nix again. So the spread is actually 7.5 for the Jets at home. I didn't think I'd be betting on this one, but my spread came out Jets by 14, so I've got the Jets winning and covering easily. So maybe we'll see some turnovers and some defensive scores in that one. All right, game 4, we have. I hate betting on teams when the spread is this big, but hey, this is what my numbers are telling me. Patriots at 49ers. San Francisco at the time was favored by 10 at home. My spread came out Niners by 20, which gave me a difference of 10. Niners obviously win and cover, so I put money on them. And then my 5th of my Fermented Five is Seahawks at Lions. I don't know how to feel about this one. I guess I want the Seahawks to win, but then that makes them 4-0, so maybe they'll tie. Anyway, Detroit favored at home by 3.5. My spread came out Detroit favored by 16. Clearly, I think very, very highly of Detroit still. And I'm still kind of questioning Seattle, so that gave me a difference of 12.5. So Detroit with the win and the easy covering of the spread. And so we are going to show you the bet slip so you can see what I put down. Oh, you know what? It's on my browser. There it is. There it is. Whoops. Wrong tab is open. That's when I was looking at this stuff. Okay, here's the bet slip. Yes. So there you have it. I put down my $20. Right here, as you can see, my win would be $488.71, which if I do win and get my 20 back, I'd win $508.71. I sure hope I do. So I got, there you go. There's the Saints with the +1, the Rams with the +3, Jets -7.5, 49ers -10, Detroit Lions -3.5. So there you go. There's my 5-team parlay. That is your Fermented Five. All right. So bringing it back to main cam. So yeah, it's going to end up being about a 40-minute show, which is about what I thought. So I haven't quite got to that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah show that I've promised. It's going to be a really juicy, meaty show. I've got so much to talk about. I'm actually continuing to do more and more research. I will get that out sometime next week. I think I'm just going to pull an all-nighter here. I mean, it's almost 6 a.m. I've only got 4 hours till game time. The sun will be up in less than an hour, so I think I'm just going to go for it. So it's been a long night, but you know what? It's been a really fun and fulfilling day. So, hey, let's just go ahead and wrap this up with the mantra, right? Play vicious, be victorious. Peace.